Good morning. I am back again. I just wanted to, I usually only go live once a week, but I was talking to a client about this yesterday, and I thought while it was on my mind, I should probably come in here and say it to you guys as well, because it might be helpful. So, we were talking about boundaries, and I think most of you are probably familiar with the idea that we actually have like little microcultures in our families. So, each family has its own sort of like way of doing things. We have our own traditions, we have our own ways of communicating, etc. And we think that that's normal because that's what we grew up with, right? So sometimes what ends up happening is in some families, the culture is that you just ask. You just ask for what it is that you want. So, like, no matter how egregious, no matter how big or crazy or whatever it is that you, the thing that you're asking for, you just ask. And if then the person says no, then it's like, no problem, no big deal. They couldn't do it. That's fine. And that feels totally fine. And nobody feels like that's rude. Now, in other family cultures, if asking like that, so like being really open and really explicit about what it is that you're wanting, that feels rude. And so what they'll do is they'll sort of like passively like communicate a little bit, and they'll like drop hints and some breadcrumbs. And what they want is they want you to say, oh, hey, like, would you want this thing? Is this something that like would be helpful for you? And then they can say, oh my gosh, like, how did you know? That would be wonderful. And so they get really frustrated. Sometimes one person from the first type of family and one person from the second type of family get married or like end up having to have like lots of communication with one another for various reasons, and that can be really, really difficult, because if the person who's very passive and is kind of like, oh, like, I'm going to drop some hints and maybe they'll like offer to do the thing that I need, they get really frustrated because the first person is not hearing it. Like, the first person is just like not on the lookout for hints like that. Like, that's not how they communicate, so it's not what they think. And vice versa, if the person who's very direct is continuing to be very direct, the person who comes from the family where you're supposed to hint and sort of sidle up to things that you want without being direct, feels like they have to do it. So they end up feeling like, oh my gosh, like, she asked, like, that's a really big deal. I feel pressured. I feel like backed into a wall here. And so if that's true, that can be, it can be worked out in the relationship. Obviously, there are ways to communicate through that, but it can be really, really difficult if you don't know what's happening. So I'm just going to ask you, I know some of us really struggle with boundaries, so I'm going to ask you to consider, is that you? Like, which side do you fall on? And if you have a spouse, are they the same type as you, or are they the other type? And how might that be affecting your communication with one another and affecting the way that you feel when you're asked to do things? So that's all I've got for you today. I hope that's helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, and have a good week. Bye.